What is up, YouTube? This is Sports Striker. I'm here today basically going to go ahead and give a lot of story of what you're seeing in the thumbnail is about 20 years, October 5th, one of the biggest changes that led to what World Wrestling Federation is today. Now, for starters, of course, you already noticed that my background's a little different. Well, I had to do some things for my room because I have problems with my window. But let's not get into that. Let's focus on what's going on in the story. So, October 5th, 1997, the World Wrestling Federation had another pay-per-view of In Your House known as Bad Blood. There were only 3 Bad Blood pay-per-views and soon to be a 4th, but then had to change it to Great Balls of Fire because of other reasons. There were only 3 of them, 1997, as I'm about to mention, 2003, and 2004. After that, the Bad Blood pay-per-view never existed ever again. But that doesn't mean for the fact it was an actually decent pay-per-view to have. So, here we go, October 5th, 1997, Bad Blood. Basically a standard pay-per-view, but it wasn't an exciting pay-per-view until the main event. And the reason is because it lacked certain matches. It did bring out legends for former NWA champions because NWA worked with WWF till later the year after in 98. But it wasn't exciting enough. Of course, we also had a new Intercontinental champion due to the fact that Austin had to vacate the title because of an injury. And Owen Hart went back and then led through the main match of Survivor Series. But that was nothing. This, my friends, is what made this pay-per-view important. Now, it's the 3 reasons why, and I'll give it to you. And the last one is going to be very important, so we'll get to details to that soon. So, the main event. Number 1 contendership for the World Wrestling Federation Championship. This took place in the certain part, starting at SummerSlam, when these 2 wrestlers actually caused something mischief. Here we have the 2 competitors, World Wrestling Federation European Champion Shawn Michaels, who was not to defend the championship because it was a number 1 contender match, to face The Undertaker. And this was led to the match that's basically started to where it is. Hell in a Cell. The debut of what made everything change for wrestling history. Alright, and was one of the most dangerous and most incredible standard matches of all time. Here we have Shawn Michaels, who basically was a referee at SummerSlam during the Undertaker-Bret Hart WWF title match. As Undertaker lost the title because of the controversy that Shawn Michaels hit him in the head by mistake, storyline. And, cost him the championship, and Undertaker was furious. Because of that, Undertaker was so mad, he actually wanted revenge on Shawn Michaels. He did later on get his rematch for the title, but unfortunately got disqualified because of it. Of course, Shawn Michaels later on turning heel and started working his ways with his pal, Triple H. And, of course, the 9th wonder of the world, China, God rest her soul, and became the new faction known as D-Generation X. With them, they basically made The Undertaker's life going through hell, but Undertaker still vowed revenge all over Shawn Michaels. Of course, they had their matches at Ground Zero in Your House the month after of the SummerSlam pay-per-view, but it ended up in a draw. Then we basically went up, and the month after was the biggest build-up ever. October 5th, 1997, Bad Blood, the match that they stated, Hell in a Cell. And because of that, Hell in a Cell was about to become one of the most productive matches of all time, where we actually get to see the greatest battles of all time going through hell in the Devil's Playground. Shawn Michaels was Warrior, of course, and The Undertaker was prepared for the Ultimate Challenge. And this was one of the famous matches that Undertaker got to be. One of the 4 stars who actually made him famous, of course, were obviously Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Mick Foley, and Triple H. And Undertaker basically had his moments with Shawn Michaels. Both of them were locked out. D-Generation could not interfere. The doors were locked. Anything goes. Falls count anywhere. No DQs. No countouts. This match was insane. And afterwards, everything was just so crazy in this match. Up until basically when Michaels knocked out the cameraman, they had to open the door to get him out. When the door was unleashed, everything was just too hectic. Undertaker grabbing up Shawn Michaels and nailing his forehead to the cage. Shawn Michaels was already busted open, wide open. It was actually other than Austin being busted open from WrestleMania, it was the first time we ever see more wrestlers with a lot of blood. And Shawn Michaels showed so much blood, similar as like what Ric Flair has ever done in his career. And as basically the match was even more hectic for Shawn, they even made it more hectic when going all the way to the top of the cell and battling out. Unfortunately, though, big mistake on Shawn Michaels. Michaels was basically cornered, and he was kind of trapped and was almost about to fall as The Undertaker had his foot on his hand, crushing it, let go, and Michaels landed all the way to the announce table with Jerry Lawler saying, incoming, incoming, bam. Michaels is already down. As a result, basically Michaels having his dry carcass straight back into the ring by the Undertaker himself, having the cage door back locked, and now Undertaker grabbing a blue steel chair, knocking out Shawn Michaels for revenge after what happened a couple months ago, and now sitting for the Tombstone. Part 2 is where we get the next debut. And that, my friends, was Kane. Kane was a character that Paul Bear has been recognized to say, he's coming back, he know the truth. We all know that you murdered your parents, you burned the funeral home, everything was true, but we want to know what's going to happen. So apparently all these messages, all these tactics, what's going on? Who is Kane? What's going on? Is he really alive? Well, with Vince McMahon being on his last pay-per-view announcing, it had to happen. As he calls for the Tombstone, the lights went out. Everything started turning red. The music hits, and the flames come up rising, and coming with Paul Bear was Kane. Played by Glenn Jacobs, who was also known as Isaac Yankem and Fake Diesel, Kane was basically or should I say, interesting character. I can't even have any words to say, because Kane was one of the most epic wrestlers to come out in the wrestling world and made a moment for what wrestling was today. Of course, he may not wrestle now. Back in the day when Kane made his debut, it was a monster that nobody would ever seen. With a guy wearing a mask, wearing a flame attire with gloves on his hand and a wristband on his left, it was very criticized to know that this was the most scariest figure to have ever happened. And I'll tell you what, I am sorry for the gibberish, but this is just so much to explain. As much as The Undertaker was the scariest creature that ever came out in his debut, Kane became one of everyone's most scariest moment ever. As Kane came out, the doors were grabbed and he pulled off the Hell in a Cell. The referee was telling him to stop, shove him out, enters the ring, The Undertaker stunned. And with this moment on, The Undertaker is so shocked as Kane lifts his arms, throws him down, the fires come out of the turnbuckles, hits The Undertaker in the gut with his foot, and basically sets up The Undertaker's finisher, the Tombstone Piledriver, as Kane now takes it out his own, knocks out The Undertaker, and leaves the ring. Shawn Michaels basically growls his way to The Undertaker, covering his arm on top of The Undertaker, as the referee comes out as well, crawling, and gives out a slow 3 count, leaving Shawn Michaels the winner and surviving the Hell in a Cell and get a shot at the WWF title, which later on leads to what may happen 1 month after I will tell you the legendary Montreal Screwjob, and I will promise you that story. And so finally to know on this pay-per-view what also led to his biggest hype, also led to a major sad downfall. On October 5th, 1997, Brian Pillman was announced dead, found in his hotel room, and they later on found out that the cause of death was cancer. Because of this, it was one of the saddest moments to know what a great legend wrestler he was. Brian Pillman was a wrestler who basically was part of the Cruiserweight division, who was actually a great pronounced high flyer. He basically got to work in WCW as Flying Brian Pillman. Worked his way as a WCW Light Heavyweight and WCW Cruiserweight Champion, as well as a former WCW Tag Champion with Steve Austin, known as the Hollywood Blondes. One of the greatest legendary tag teams of all time, but never got to last long because of WCW's stupidity of writing, ending a great time that made both Brian Pillman and Steve Austin's career there hell. Even though Pillman later on also got to be in the first episode of Nitro against Jushin Liger, and also became a member of the Four Horsemen, teaming up with Chris Benoit, Ric Flair, and Arn Anderson, it still wasn't enough for his career. Later on leaving and heading to ECW, became now what later on to work with the WWF known as the Lunatic Brian Pillman. His time there didn't last long as well, as he later on made his debut in the King of the Ring in 1996, around that time, and became Brian Pillman. Of course, an injury came along because of a terrible car crash. His foot was injured, which also led to Austin Pillman rivalry, which I felt like as though could have just done more. And of course, our famous moments where basically Austin goes to Pillman's house, starts raiding everything, attacking his friends, and basically trying to get into Pillman's house and attack him, which also led to one of the most descriptive and crazy moments in Raw history, the legendary Pillman has a gun. And because of that, USA had to cut that part because of the efficiency that they thought, oh god, a gunshot was going to happen. Luckily, Austin went out, and then things went crazy, and then Austin came back for more, and Pillman had a gun. It led to craziness to know what the Lunatic was. Well, of course, later on, Pillman went to work with Bret Hart later on as basically part of the new and improved Hart Foundation, which was actually a pretty good stable, which I prefer that. And then was originally about to have Pillman versus Austin at the King of the Ring, but they didn't do that for God knows no reason, and led that match the night after. Of course, led to one of the best funny promos that me and my brother will always laugh, will always be about this, where he's right there and Austin was taking a piss, and right behind him, Pillman comes up saying, "It's been a long time, Steve, but I was told, seek, and you shall bah!" And the attack goes on. It was funny. Head is in the toilet. We all know the story, including his later rival with Goldust, and yada yada. The whole story goes. As we all know, later on the night after Bad Blood, Pillman was basically announced dead and gave a tribute to him. Therefore, guys, October 5th, 1997 was one of the best moments of all time for World Wrestling Federation, helping what basically gave a lot more proof to later on give it to the biggest moments of their career, the Attitude Era, which helped them basically defeat over WCW in the Monday Night Wars, and also the purchase of ECW, but that's for a later date. Next month, guys, I will be back for the video going to be known as the famous Montreal Screwjob and what happened that night of Survivor Series 1997. But until then, guys, I will do more videos. I'll do as much links as I can. I hope you guys enjoy this. I'm sorry for the rambling, lack of intros. Like I said, YouTube cannot basically have the intros. It sucks, but it's okay. Nothing I can do. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, so give this a like. Let's just hope we give a good tribute to Brian Pillman and to everyone else, and to the great Kane. Thank you for so much for the wrestling years, and Hell in a Cell still being one of the most dangerous adversary matches of all time. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you around. This is Force Striker, signing off.